The different types of services that you're going to find is the tramp shipping and the liner shipping. Let's talk about the tramp shipping first. Now, the definition of tramp shipping. Ready? The transport of goods in bulk or in break bulk in a vessel chartered wholly or partly to one or more shippers on the basis of voyage or time charter or any other form of contract for non-regularly scheduled or non-advertised sailings where the freight rates are freely negotiated by case in accordance with the conditions of supply and demand. You don't have to write this down.
I was going to ask what's a solid summary.
Okay. Solid summary. Bulk cargo. On charter with no set time. It's not scheduled. Okay. Easiest way to do that.
So this is through a time charter, right?
Doesn't matter. It could be time charter or it could be voyage charter. Okay. A vessel chartered to move bulk shipments on a non-scheduled basis.
So it's effectively a license to ship whatever you want for how long you want.
Oh, it's just it's a type of service.
Yeah. Until
Okay.
things change with the contracts.
It means you aren't saying like, you know, why
Yeah.
So it's on any different kind of charter?
It could be any kind of charter. The whole point of tramp shipping, big bulk, not scheduled. The two big things about tramp shipping, big bulk, not scheduled. Okay. The reason why I remind you that it's big bulk and not scheduled is because liner shipping is when we start having specific schedules and dates for when we're in and out of port. This is just go free willy-nilly wherever the cargo needs to be and where it comes from, okay?
Is this more rare?
Hell no.
Or is this like really common?
This is extremely common, which is why we talk about the time charter and the voyage charter. This right here is how you move your grain, your steel, your ore, a lot of your oil, cement, big bulk that you can't or that you don't want to cut up into small sections. It's a whole ship's worth of goods moving from one place to the other. Okay? Everything in the tramp world is based off of supply and demand. Where do we need to move big bulk items? Okay?
So, do you ever have it where you're like halfway to a port and that port, the demand gets higher and they
Uh-huh.
there?
Uh-huh. You know what's funny? Because we were talking about this all summer. Okay. So technically, the Green Bay was a time charter to NYK. NYK would use us to pick up whatever cargo we needed, whether it was Mitsubishi's, Toyota's, Subaru's, whatever comes out of Japan, we picked up. Our voyage, or our ports of destination, changed 5 times before we even got to Japan. Yeah. And the reason why is because the demand for those cargoes needing to go over to wherever, let's say they had a cargo that needed to move from Japan, from Mizushima, over to South America. If there was a ship that was closer and that was already headed there, they'd shove that cargo onto that ship, and then they would find other cargo for us to move. Okay. Let's roll. Where are we? Supply and demand. Okay. So one of the biggest characteristics of tramp shipping, supply demand. Let's talk about grain. In the United States, when we grow corn, it takes 90 days from start to finish. Okay, so I plant in April, and in the fall, I will harvest. and then I have to move that. Can I plant corn in winter? No. Okay.
GMO.
No,
I
no.
don't want to challenge you, but it's possible.
No. But it's the same thing for corn. It's the same thing for rice. It's the same thing for almost every different type of fruit or vegetable. Okay. So at that point, in the fall, in the United States, for us to export, we have a huge demand for ships to move our cargo or move our grain all over the world. Okay? After that, what do we do with the ships? Where do they go? But if you can only grow in the northern hemisphere in spring to fall, what do you pick up or what do you do after that? Yeah, but how many places in the southern hemisphere actually grow grain? Australia. Maybe South America. Actually, South America has a decent one, but there's not a whole lot there. Okay? So at this point, tramp ships will actually change the type of cargo that they're moving. Okay? That's why we call them bulk carriers or break bulk carriers, because they can switch from one cargo to the next. They're more fluid. They will pick up whatever is available that's closest to them, provided that they can do it. I made this comment, and it's a little weird. Okay, so a tramp ship can pick up grain, go over to China, drop it off, and pick up iron. Okay, they have to make sure that their tanks or their hatches are clean, or their holds are clean for iron, but they can do that. Now, we can't go from grain to oil, because the switch back to grain is just, that's way too much cleaning, and that's too dirty. Okay? They won't do it with cement either. But those are things that tramp shipping does. It's here's the demand, this is where the vessel needs to be, this is where I'm going to pick it up, and after I drop it off, I might be picking up a load of iron. Okay? That's why it is the supply and demand. Okay? So any commodities, anything that's really cheap, like coal, it's really, really cheap. You're not going to send coal in a container. Okay? You could do oil, tankers, iron, or steel, nickel, grains, you name it. Okay? So the features of tramp shipping, supply and demand, and then the vessel types, break bulk. A lot of companies are going to have a small number of vessels in operations. Okay? This is where tramp shipping is really good to get your foot in the door. Okay? You can handle, or you can run 1 to 4 ships, 5, maybe 6 ships, with a whole whopping 2 people in the office. That's really a bare basic setup. Okay? It's really technically a small business. Okay? The people who actually work hardest for your ships is the agent, because they're handling paperwork when you're going in and out of port, and the ship broker, because the ship broker is looking for your next commodity or your next shipment. Okay? So you're going to find that 82% of the shipping or the tramp shipping industry has ship owners or companies that only own 4 ships. Okay? The supply and demand side of this. This is where you get really rich or really broke really fast. Okay? You see this line right here? This line is for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This is over a period of a year. Who knows what the Dow Jones is? Who knows what the Dow Jones is? Okay. Yes. Well, that's S&P 500. Dow Jones is actually an average. It still uses about, I think it's 100, but the top 100 grossing companies is listed, and we base our entire market off of how well or how shitty they're doing. Okay? So in a year, the Dow Jones really doesn't move all that much, even though we can sit here and go, ooh, oh my God, they rose 10 cents or 10 points this week, and oh my God, there's 100 down. They don't really move. Unless it's a recession, then it's like, drop, 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 keep dropping. Don't stop. Okay? When we're looking at freight rates and supply and demand, okay, the biggest way that we understand what the Tramp shipping market is going to do is the freight rates. We can look and see how volatile it is. Okay? Here, from here to here, the Baltic Dry Index from the Baltic Exchange is the number or how much the freight rate is. Yes, sir.
Why is it so low during summer, or actually spring and summer?
Think about the northern hemisphere. Most of our stuff gets grown, or most of our commodities, grain, gets grown in this time. Okay, so this is plant time. August is harvest. November is the peak of the shipping out and the harvest time, and then back down.
So if it's consistent like this every year, people invest the same way, correct?
Kinda. It might not always work this way. Let's talk about current events. What just happened between us and China? Trade wars. Okay, so the United States said that we're not charging enough taxes on imports from China, therefore we're going to raise it. And what did China do in rebuttal? They upped it. Okay, at that point, that affects this curve. Because if it's too expensive to ship to the United States, they're not going to send grain over to the United States. Or China's not going to purchase our grain. So on and so forth. So this becomes very volatile in the moving up and the moving down. Sometimes there's droughts. Okay, California right now is in a drought. So if we're in a drought, we can't grow our goods. That means we don't have as much to sell or to export.
So I mean, they have to import more, maybe, though? Not drastically.
Well, most of the stuff that California is the 5th largest agriculture nation. We are considered a nation at this point. Okay. In reality, we just don't export as much out. We wouldn't be, or we still have enough to where we don't have to import. Japan gets a lot of their rice from us. A lot. So keep that in mind. Okay? All right, where am I? What did I say last? BDI. Okay, so the Baltic Dry Index fluctuates. Droughts, season, politics, wars. Wars will tip this scale too. Anything. If you're a ship owner and you're sitting here watching these numbers and you're like, and you notice that there's a war coming up or something in the Middle East happened and the BDI starts falling, it's a good time to actually purchase vessels, because the price of a vessel to purchase secondhand will increase, or the price will decrease, because they just need to get rid of ships. Okay, purchasing a vessel at this time, bad idea. Okay, the whole supply demand. If freight rates are high, people are less likely wanting to sell their vessels. Therefore, the price will be higher.
So in
in the middle of the year when there's kind of a drought, does that mean the cargo that you're shipping is worth more to whatever destination you're going to because there's less going out in that regard, or is it
Could be.
all the same?
Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different factors. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And this is just a year. That's not talking a 5-year span. Think about that one. Okay, one of the biggest things that we have had happen, and I talk about this on the liner side too. Okay, 2008. What happened in 2008? The people that our Great Recession. Okay, yeah. So 2008 was our Great Recession, where we started seeing houses fall, everything start falling, and items stopped moving. So freight rates started coming down. Everybody thought that our markets were starting to pick up and starting to go north to where we were still building ships and accounting for a much higher amount of cargo that was being moved. Well, guess what? On the bulk side, scrap them. Forget it. You build the ship. I don't have work for it. Write it off as a loss, scrap the ship. Okay? All right, so fleets, Tramp fleet ownership. Like I said, 82% of the fleet are owned by companies with 0 to 4 vessels. There's only 0.5% of the fleet that actually have companies with 50 or more. Okay. So, what do we do when we have really high highs and really low lows? How do we actually determine, or how do we fight off some of that risk? Because it is a major risk. A Tramp pool. Let's get together and pool our resources together. Okay, so a Tramp pool. It's a collection of similar vessel types, size and sizes owned by various companies that is marketed as one single cohesive unit in order to maximize revenues and contracts. Say again?
Isn't that kind of like price setting between companies?
No. Okay. The reason why. Same vessel type. Same vessel size. So you are offering one thing.
I was going to say, isn't this kind of like a union price?
No.
Is that you saying like a set price, like all these companies, their markets on the same product, I guess, right? The same boat, type, and price consistent across that?
It's consistent. Yeah, kind of.
I mean, that kind of makes like a union thing, right?
Well, it's like a franchise for boats.
It's more like a Tramp pool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Kawupu. Yes, it's a Tramp pool. It's pulling together our resources. I wouldn't really call it a union. I move unions over to the personnel side.
So is this like the businesses invest in each other, and I guess.
It's not the businesses investing in each other. So what they do is they take, let's say Mr. Landon, Mr. Fowler, Mr. Rohr, and I have 4 vessels each. Break bulk. No, actually, I'll make it easier. We all own car carriers. Okay, car carriers are already set up to be 200 meters long. That's it. We don't go any bigger. We don't go any smaller. That's the regulated size of a car carrier. Okay, so we have each 4 car carriers. Okay, if I pool all these resources here, that means I have 16 car carriers. That means I can go to Toyota and say, Toyota, I have 16 car carriers that at your disposal. I know you have to continuously move cars out, but they are not specified on schedule. So I will give you time charters. And we can do a long-term time charter to where if this vessel can pick up cargo today, he can go straight to South America. Mr. Fowler's vessels can take those over to Australia, and if his stuff breaks down, Mr. Rohr over here can pick up his cargo. Okay, so the whole point is gathering this agreement or this pool of ships and saying, here, we're going to offer all of our services for a much larger contract, not just these one piddly dinks. Okay, one move here, one move here.
So the advantage is just easier to do business with people because they're like 16 ships, and that takes care of all of what we need instead of having to do like lots of different deals.
Yeah.
With this company.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the grain industry. We just said that corn and rice we harvest in California, and we have to ship out this large, massive amount of rice to Japan all at once. So I can say these 4 people have 16 ships. Okay, they're going to handle the entire cargo transfer. Okay, so they can move everything, and I don't have to go to Mr. McNulty himself and make that agreement. I don't have to go to this person and make separate agreements. I just make one agreement and be done. Okay, at that point, it's nice because I know that if I work in a pool, that I'm going to get a chunk. I take the pool's take the pool's risks, but I also reap the pool's benefits. And so my risk ratio of how much risk I'm actually taking to operate my vessels is reduced. It's like putting all your money in a mutual fund or putting all your money into Apple. Would you put all of your money into Apple? No. Because what happens if Apple tanks?
You're a goner.
Yes, you're a goner. Yes, sir.
So just a quick question about the 82% of the industry having less than four ships. Is like a majority of that 82 in a tramp pool, or are they just still doing like the little 1 or 2 moves?
I don't have the number on me. I remember seeing it, but I don't remember how much it was. But yeah, there's quite a few that are still doing the pools.
It makes more sense, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Wealth-wise.
Yeah. I mean, bad management will take one of these, or take a company out, or just a slump in bulk shipping will take a company out.
So the tramp pools normally happen when it's not like the shipping period time, and it's the time when they're still growing.
No, you actually have to put your foot in and say that you will be in a tramp pool for X amount of months or X amount of years. Okay, so it's an agreement over time. It's not just, okay, well, there's no shipping, so I'm going to jump into this tramp pool and hope like hell that I make it out. It's an agreement from start to finish, whether it's 5 years, whether it's 2 months, whether it's 3 years. Okay. Okay, we good with the tramp pools? Supply and demand. Liner shipping. So the first contracted liner shipping was in 1939. Okay, it was by the Royal Mail Steam Packet Company, and they began running mail from Europe over to the United States, and it was a steamship. Now, what did we learn about steamships? Time-wise? They were more reliable on time. Okay, even though that vessel was only able to run 10 knots and the clipper ship was able to run 15, as long as we had coal on board, the steamship would run. The clipper, you had to deal with wind. And if there was no wind, guess what your ship didn't do? Go anywhere. Okay. So the steamships really brought in the whole thought process of liners. And liners used to be general cargo. All they were just large, packets of mail. and whoever would put cargo on board. Okay? So, the definition. Liner shipping provides services and transportation of final and semi-final products. It is considered a general cargo carrier. It takes anything. Okay? Used to be break bulk. Now, when we talk about liner ships, we talk about containers. Okay? Break bulk, bulk, anything of that type, specialized cargo, like let's say we're moving windmills, okay? Large quantities like that, we can't handle anymore. We move that over to the Tramp into the Tramp side, and we move containers over to the liner side. Because it's easy. I can pick up a container, and I can move it wherever the heck I want. Doesn't matter. Okay? But with the fact that we go into a liner and a scheduled service and reliability, we also start seeing larger infrastructures, where on a Tramp company, I can have 2 people sitting in an office, and that's all I need. Liner ships, you want to be on schedule, you got to have a large infrastructure. You got to have your freight forwarders. You got to have the guys in the office who actually puts the cargo on board. Stow planners. You got to have captains of the port. You got to have equipment. Okay? So each place that you go to, you have to have the dock space. You don't just rent the dock space. You pretty much own that dock space. Okay? Container ships. You have to have the gantries. You have to have the intermodal system inside the port to get your cargo to you. Not only trucks, trains. And some places are using barges.
It says that, I don't know how to pronounce that, Amgen, they're a steel company.
Yes.
The other companies pick up their ships, or how does that work?
Ooh, you know, I haven't followed up on that one. I really haven't, and I wish I did. Sometime, you know what? Hang on a second, because that one's huge. That one's big. Liquidated. So all those vessels that they had, all their infrastructure was sold off, broken up, and moved. Yeah. Okay. TEU? 20 equivalent unit. Okay, so that's one box. One box is considered 20 foot long. That's not the standard size box, but that is the TEU. One standard, 20 feet. Okay, where the hell was I? Where did I stop? The infrastructure. Okay, you gotta have the intermodal abilities to bring the cargo toward or to your port. Okay. So at this point, you're not talking about having 3-4 vessels. Okay, that's not enough. Because 3 or 4 vessels, if you're going just from Japan to the United States alone, and you want to have one ship weekly, you got to have at least 8. Because it takes 2 weeks to go from Japan to the United States. Okay? And that's what APL does. American Presidential Lines, the American side, because there are 2 different sides of APL. And actually, take APL and merge it with CMA CGM, because they just did a merger 2 years ago. Okay? They have 8 U.S. flagged vessels. Okay? 6 of them operate a loop from Japan to Shanghai to, yes, they do Okinawa, Los Angeles, Oakland, Dutch Harbor, back to Japan. And in order for them to have a weekly service, they have to have every single vessel running. 6 of them. Okay?
What is a
Say that again?
What isn't a liner?
Liner carriers are not going to be your... In reality, yeah. Your liner carriers are now container ships. There's some other cargo that does liner, but the majority of it is container ships. If you're doing large loads, that's different. Answer your question? Kinda? I don't know. Okay. Shit.
And then junk ships are, what's the word? The big carriers, right? The junk ships are bulk carriers.
Yes.
So liners are the same thing as container ships, and the junk carriers are bulk carriers.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, that's all we have. I mean, even the last ships, the lighter aboard ships that I showed you with the connexes, or not the connexes, the barges, those were supposed to be a liner carrier where they had a standard service back and forth, but those didn't work out. I mean, it was nice, but it was just too big. So there's nothing, unfortunately. Did you have a question, Mr. Dollison? No. Okay. 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 So yeah, the top 10 container fleets, wipe them out, because every time that we go through a recession or we have something happen, these change. But the one that hasn't changed, Maersk. Okay, Maersk used to merge, or used to be a merger with Sealand. Okay, Mediterranean Shipping Company, another large one. CMA CGM is a French company. American Presidential Line still operates as APL, but they merged with CMA CGM to create a larger agreement. Okay, Hapag-Lloyd, still around. Evergreen. Okay, Costco. Who remembers the container ship that hit the Bay Bridge? That was this company, Costco. Yeah, and actually the pilot that was on board was having problems with the accent of the captain. That was his blame. Okay, CSCL, another one. Hanjin failed. Okay, they were one of those who wanted to put so much money into their infrastructure and have this big old honking project, or have this company. And when the market tanked, guess what else tanked? Cargo. Okay, so they lost it. Okay, and then Mitsui, OSK. Big guys. Yes, sir. What do you mean? Well, you're never going to get onto an Evergreen ship, because Evergreen doesn't actually have a U.S. flag fleet. They're all international flag, foreign flag. Where American Presidential Line has APL Limited, which is a U.S. company, meaning that they can run U.S. flagged vessels. Maersk, same thing. They operate on the East Coast. Hapag-Lloyd is another one who has Hapag-Lloyd Limited that operates in the United States. It's just a sister company, same name, same infrastructure. They just work together. All the taxes, everything based out for that company, for the limited side, is United States. Okay, it's kind of a business game that they like to play, going, okay, we have this and we have that. Another reason why is to limit their risk, because if you put all your eggs into the U.S. basket, you're not going to survive, right? It's too expensive to do business in the United States. Everybody says this, everybody does it, okay? So there are companies out here that are U.S. based. They have their parent companies, or they have sister companies overseas. And those are the ones who operate the vessels. Okay. All right. So liners, the way that this works. You have the link, you have the node. Okay? The node is the stop. That's where the cargo moves. It changes hands. It changes infrastructures. So going from truck over to the ship. Links is just the transport, going from one node to the other node. So why is this so important? Business practices. Okay, tramp ships, they're easy, right? Tramp ships go wherever the cargo goes. But liner services, here's we get more in-depth, more entailed. We start looking at infrastructure and how we do business. Okay, end-to-end service. Let's talk APL. APL Limited. APL Limited can pretty much be defined as end for end because it goes from one continent to the next. It only transits the Pacific Ocean. Okay? Pendulum service goes to 3. Okay? So it goes from the United States, it goes to Asia, it goes to Europe. Wait, we got to go backwards because it's a pendulum. Okay? So it goes backwards the same way. From Europe, it goes to Asia, goes to the United States. And then back again. Asia, Europe, Asia, United States. Okay? And the reason why they do something like that, vessel size. Okay? Panamax ships. You can't get it in through the Panama Canal. Panamax. Maxed out. Can't get it in. Suezmax. Same thing. Afromax. Maximum sizes. That means it's restricted. Maersk. Maersk has a lot of Panamax vessels. Okay? And that's because they move cargo from Asia over to the United States. And that's their big money maker right there. And also the other way, where they go from Asia to Europe. Okay? The water is much more or much deeper over on that side, and so they can get away with not ever having to go through the Panama Canal. Did you have a question? No. Okay. Okay. Last one. Round the world service. Smaller vessels. Okay. Smaller vessels that can get through the Panama Canal and go around the world. Okay. Now, why do I bring this up? Because in reality, if you get onto a container ship, you're going to be doing one of these. And you're probably going to sit here and go, oh, that's right. That's why we keep going into Shanghai. I don't like Shanghai, but we go. Okay? So we start kind of changing the way that we look at just the type or the service routes, because the service routes move into this. Okay? This is that large liner infrastructure that I'm talking about. Okay? If you're like APL, you don't really have a hub. You don't really have a home. You just keep going from one port to the next all the way around. Okay? I call that point to point. Okay? So I go from Yokohama to Shanghai to Qingdao to Oakland, Los Angeles, Dutch Harbor, and back. That's point-to-point transportation system. One vessel is only needed to hit all those ports. Big problem with that? If I put cargo on at Shanghai and I needed to go to Dutch Harbor, how long is it going to take for that cargo to get there? The actual route time is about 42 days. So talking 35 days just to get from Shanghai over to Dutch Harbor. Okay. But I only need a small infrastructure. I only need a small amount of vessels. I only need those 6 vessels. That's it. I'm good. I'm golden. But what a lot of companies, Maersk, CMA CGM, let's see, Hanjin was trying to work this one out, CSCL, Costco, all the big runners are moving over to a style like the hub and spoke. Okay? You don't have just one vessel, you don't have 6 vessels, you have like 20 vessels. And you tailor it for how much cargo is moving in and out of a certain port. So there's not a whole lot of people in Dutch Harbor, correct? No. So do I need to send more cargo over there versus Oakland? No. So I can send one vessel up to Oakland, or one small vessel to Dutch Harbor, but I have so much cargo that is moving into Oakland, I can have 5 different vessels just on the Shanghai to Oakland run. Okay, so you start with a hub. That's the main place that we're going to pick up cargo. Let's call it Shanghai, or let's call it Singapore. Okay, these are 2 super hubs where all the cargo just kind of floods right into those ports. And there's a lot of different vessels or different companies that use those as hubs. Okay, everything starts moving in there. And then I take ships and I feed to other ports, depending on where it needs to go, based on supply and demand. Okay? One small ship goes to Dutch Harbor. I don't have to wait for it to go all the way around the world. It goes from Shanghai to Dutch Harbor, 2 weeks. Versus how long? What did I say, 35 days? 42. 35 to 42, depending on weather. Okay? Or, let's say I've got stuff that is going, or a lot of stuff going to Oakland. I have 4 different vessels, 1,000-foot vessels going from Shanghai just to Oakland itself. 2 weeks. So every day, almost, I have cargo coming into Oakland, no problem. Which ship do you want me to put it on? What day do you need it there? Okay? But this takes a lot more effort. This takes a lot more work. This takes more vessels. Yes, sir?
Do they, after they load cargo, turn around and come home, load up again, and do it again, or do they get anything out there?
Depends. From the United States back to Asia, it's empties. You'll have refrigerated cargo coming out because we have fruits, vegetables, we've got almonds. You know, California is the 5th largest agriculture country, producing country in the world, just California alone. And so that goes out. But in terms of numbers, it's nothing like Asia coming over here. So a lot of the stuff that we send back is empties. Okay? All right. Hub, spokes. Point to point. I guess I need to make a slide for point to point. But yeah, bigger infrastructure. Lots more supply demand. A lot more risk when it comes to numbers. Okay? We are, or the liner service is really subject to what the economy is doing. Okay? I hate using this one because it is a political moment. But think about the trade deficit that we're trying to fix. What did Trump just do to China? Tariffs. We have sat here and said that we are not taxing goods coming from China enough. And so we added an import tax. What did China do to us? Yes. More taxes. Okay? And the whole point of trying to do that is to create more of a balance. Okay, so the world economy really hits us hard. A recession. Okay, let's talk about the recession in 2008 when we started seeing the housing crisis. 2008 was when we started seeing the housing crisis, and people were losing their houses left and right. What did they stop doing? They stopped buying things. Okay, China and the entire world was gearing up for a huge, amazing, transfer of cargo. So they started building larger ships, huge ships, okay, just so that they can account for an economy of scale. What happened? Everything dropped. Hanjin goes under. We start feeling the effects. There's not as much shipping going on. Okay, so yeah, big deal. Supply demand recessions, world. Okay. So yes, somebody was asking me the other day about how do we deal with alliances, or what do we think about alliances? I can't remember who asked that. Or can you make an agreement or an alliance? Now, if Maersk, CMA CGM, APL, and Hapag-Lloyd decide that they were going to fix some rates, what does that become? A monopoly. Did you have a question, or were you going to say monopoly? Yeah. You haven't. Say again?
That determines when, multiple sellers all raise prices.
Yeah. In reality, it is more of a cartel, but we do consider it a monopoly too, because the big guys. There's only 4 people who actually do the major shipping. They're the ones who do the major shipping, and at that point, if they're rate fixing, the rate fixing could be in their benefit and not the actual person's, or the shipper. Okay, so agreements, alliances, conferences, they're extremely regulated. Europe hates them. Europe can't stand them. The United States, we have antitrust laws. All because we've had that issue of monopolies where the biggest big guys were the only players in town. And they could call the shots. Okay. So the liner conference, where you have a group of 2 or more vessels operating carriers, this only accounts for 18% of the liners. Okay. We really have had to play with the wording on the contracts and the conferences, and even then, a lot of them got disbanded because there was too much monopoly. Okay, but what we have started doing, strategic alliances. Okay, strategic alliances are formed to utilize economies of scale, scope, and network. Allows for vessel sharing, joint ownership, and shared usage of equipment and terminals. So let's talk about Shanghai. Do you think that everybody who goes into Shanghai has their own dock? No. Maersk has their own dock. CMA CGM has their own dock. Costco has their own dock. All the rest of them jointly share the other dock space. Okay? And that's so that they can utilize the same areas, because everybody is pulling cargo out of the same place. All right.
So then